Remember, watch what you say tonight. We don't want to upset
Poop.
the cartel or Sean Penn. I don't care if we upset Sean Penn.
Oh, Shawnee.
Yeah.
You know,
All right.
come on, man.
Welcome to the H&H Bungalow 605, the brand new Croc Park. Welcome to the Black Bear. Welcome to the Den. Welcome to the Snug.
Sean Penn.
What's up, Doug Reiser?
What's up? What's up? Peace out. Doug Reiser here.
The incomparable
Got it.
Miss Karis Carter.
Hey, that's me.
Melanie Yadkins.
Up.
On the Stick, a 2017 documentary, Netflix original, The Day I Met El Chapo.
The Day I Met El Chapo is the biographical documentary from Mexican actress Kate del Castillo. The three-part series tells Kate's side of the story using never-before-seen footage and exclusive details of what led to the infamous meeting between one of the world's most notorious drug lords, a Hollywood star, and one of Mexico's most famous television actresses. Each episode focuses on Kate's side of the story, from how it started to how it's going, including insight into some juicy and controversial conversations. It's got a little bit of everything we really like in our entertainment: secret messages, explosive news stories, and beautifully translated subtitles.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you, Mel. Listen, if you have seen this documentary, The Day I Met El Chapo, the Kate del Castillo story, hang out with us. I think you are going to greatly enjoy this discussion. And if you haven't seen it, Karis tells us there may be some spoilers in her response, but generally we try not to spoil anything. We will take a score at the end, and based on that cumulative score among the four of us, we'll try to make a good recommendation for you. We'll get to some of my thoughts maybe a little bit later. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about this, but I will go ahead and say here at the top of our podcast, I find this to be one of the most fascinating stories I've ever heard. And the documentary, very compelling. I thought very well done. As Melanie said, you know, this is there's a lot of moving parts in this thing. You've got the cartel, you've got the Mexican government, you've got the United States government, you've got major celebrities, you've got Sean Penn, and this controversy essentially swirling around one Kate del Castillo, who put out a tweet one night, went to bed and woke up to a, what do they call that? A firestorm. But anyway, we'll get to some of my thoughts on this later, but let's go ahead and get the discussion officially started. I want to jump right into it. Can't wait to hear what Melanie Yadkins thinks, because you saw this today. I mean, you're coming off with very fresh eyes and ears. So Mel Yadkins, first of all, welcome back. Thanks for being here, filling in for Ashley Mae King. But what'd you like, what'd you love, what not so much, The Day I Met El Chapo?
There was a lot to like in this one. I really appreciated the way that it was set up as a documentary. It was really nice to have that chronological explanation of how everything unfolded. And I really liked how it sucked you right in. You were riveted. You were just on top of it, and I loved it. The way that they decided to kind of show the stuff that you've not seen on the news, and it wasn't really oh, hey, look at all of this information that we've all seen before. I really appreciated that.
Had you ever heard of Kate del Castillo before this documentary? I imagine many who have seen this didn't know who she was, but did you?
I had heard very, very briefly about it. It wasn't a big thing in my circle of concern. Just honest. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was fascinating to hear more about her side than just the facts of the case. And I think that that's so important to have in a documentary too. It's the stuff that you didn't know before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought the documentary did a really nice job of, it's her documentary. Okay. So, you know, but it tells a little bit of her story. You know, you find out a little of who her parents are and were. Father was an actor, and very well respected actor in Mexico. And, you know, you get a sense of what her pursuits and her ambitions are. And then of course, how it's relative, to her, you know, assertiveness in this situation. I thought the documentary did a really nice job. And from the start to the finish, I was definitely drawn in. Oh, yeah. A lot of talking heads, but it's what it is. And I thought the footage, the supporting footage was excellent, told great stories. And, I don't think you have to completely know the history of the Mexican government or Mexico, but I think we all understand corruption. I mean, we've got it here in the United States as well. But yeah, all these elements kind of coming together were pretty nice. What else?
Oh, man. Spotlight on Melanie. I kind of liked the way that they split it up into those 3 episodes. It wasn't just a straight through movie. It kind of had those moments where it had natural finishes to those episodes. And I kind of really liked that because, you every once in a while you just need to sit back and digest it. Yeah, you could watch it for the complete time through. What is that, like 3 hours? But
yeah, and to point out for any of those of you who have not seen it, might be thinking about seeing it. Maybe you've seen it as you've run through Netflix movies. It's one season. It's essentially it's a 3 episode
season
documentary. It's about the length. I would say about 3 hours.
Yeah.
So this is not. Don't think this is going to be seasons and many episodes. It's really essentially the maybe slightly greater than the length of a long feature length film or documentary or whatever. But yeah, just 3 episodes.
Yeah, and I liked the fact that it broke it up that way because you felt like you could kind of sit back and digest a piece of it and get up and grab a drink of water or something in between and not feel like you have to sit there and just keep watching.
Yeah, at the end of one of the Karis here, at the end of one of the first episode, I felt like I had heard the whole story. Yeah. And I found myself wondering, ooh, what else could there be? And then by the second, I'm like, what else could there be? And then finally by the end, I'm like, wow, that really represented a lot of different angles, and that was really nice.
Yeah, they brought in a lot of different people and a lot of different points of view that all supported kind of this main storyline that she was telling too, without it being
you had lawyers, friends, colleagues, and again, if you haven't seen this, we don't want to spoil anything, but essentially Kate del Castillo, a very famous Latin actress from Mexico, she put out a tweet essentially putting down the Mexican government and at once praising the world's most notorious drug lord, El Chapo.
Now, wait a second. I'm just gonna have to come to the box here and say that the interpretation of her tweet. There are many different interpretations of her tweet.
True.
So I would say make your own interpretation of that tweet. And we are not here to do that for you, but we will provide our opinions on our interpretation of that tweet.
What is your interpretation of it?
I mean, essentially the tweet, that original tweet saying, I have more trust in El Chapo than I do my government.
There you go.
Yeah.
Which is somewhat innocuous, but I mean, listen, this is Mexico, and I don't think she could have ever imagined that it would have become what it did.
How do you interpret that?
Well, I think it's kind of like saying I would prefer to drink muddy water than the bottom of a urinal. But I'm not praising muddy water. I'm just saying it's a little better than a urinal.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
But somebody like Kate del Castillo, who is Mexico native, okay, she understands the overarching dynamic, which is Mexicans can't make a living doing much else, and so they're almost forced into this life.
Absolutely.
And so I think she recognizes that. So yes, it's muddy water, but I think, which is evident in this documentary, there was love from Kate del Castillo to El Chapo.
Absolutely.
Even before this tweet, there's something in her that understands maybe the plight of this man and the plight of the Mexican. And so I don't think there's anything to adjust in the slight of the Mexican government by Kate del Castillo.
Yeah.
I think that stands on its own. But I think the part with El Chapo, I think it is muddy water, but I think it's a muddy water that she was clearly willing to take a sip of and engage, and that's how things blew up and got to where they ultimately went. But
well, sure, and I don't think she couldn't have imagined just how risky everything would have gotten after that fact. Saying, oh well, this is what I think, and kind of that freedom of speech. And then it just kind of exploded in her face. And then all of these different things come at her. And she goes, okay, so what do I do now that makes it so that, I don't get shot?
I think she was put in a very difficult position. I mean, really, seriously.
But you know what's interesting throughout, and this can be hard to talk about because there are so many layers to this. But when the DEA agents busted into her Los Angeles home, they told her that the cartel had a hit on her. And if you remember this, she reacts to that and says, okay, if they're looking for me, then you better have somebody at my mother's house. You better have somebody watching my father, whoever. But she didn't think that. She didn't truly believe that. She had no fear of the cartel. Certainly not El Chapo's crew, right? She really doesn't. She fears the Mexican government, and maybe in this case, the United States government as well. I found that to be really interesting. It shows her perspective. It shows, I think, her understanding, the homegirl that she is. I think she placed that much trust in that friendship that she had with El Chapo. Is sort of odd as it was, that kind of grew from text messages and relaying messages to ultimately a meeting with him to be in front of this guy. Of course, El Chapo must think the world of her, this beautiful actress who's paying him props on a tweet. I mean, it's just so fascinating. But I think what it really boils down to, at least the way the documentary tells the story, and I'm inclined to believe it, is the Mexican government had an axe to grind against her. Sure, they were embarrassed, but now they had this object that they could lay this at her feet. I think they bring up issues of sexism, which I have no problem with. I fully believe that sexism is involved here. And then, the President Nieto, who was there at the time, I'm an outsider, but her story is very compelling and for me, very believable. Karis, what else? What were some of your other thoughts on this?
So there are so many different things to consider in this situation. You have a character, and I'm going to break it down like characters of hero's journey or any sort of narrative piece, right? You've got El Chapo, which is I would put in the same basket as Michael Jackson. Right? There are, or the musician, I always forget his name. He's a country musician that stomped his wife's face into the floor. And after being put in prison, they later had a celebratory music festival for this musician. And so, El Chapo is another one of those people. It's like you have someone that's doing these maybe terrible deeds, but look at all the good that they're doing as well. Look at the positive impact that they're having in a community, right? And how do you separate the negative from the bad? And one of my favorite quotes in the movie was something that Kate Del Castillo said, and she said, "There's good and bad inside of us all." And so for me, that's what I resonated the most with this story is that she humanized this drug lord in a way that was not good for the government, right? And you see, not just with El Chapo, but with Escobar and several other drug lords in Mexico, that there is this relationship that they have with the communities that they come from. It even touches on this in the film, that most drug lords, if not all, I think they claimed, I'm not going to claim that, but that's what they claimed in the film, that all drug lords come from poverty. That's like the one link that they all have. And they all give back to these communities and help establish income and some sort of sustainability for that community. And that is kind of creates this hero mentality, and it creates this ability for people to have empathy for a human being that is doing good that may also be causing harm. And then there, you can speculate from there. But I thought, to look at El Chapo and break down this kind of dichotomy of like a cult leader, right? To put him in the same basket as well. Yeah. I would say that you've got these super charismatic people that have a heart and have an ability for connection, deep connection with not only one person, but entire communities of people. And with that connection, you have to do things to maintain that relationship, that connection, that support.
Yeah.
And that's how he survived for 20 years, I'm sure, because, a lot of people loved him and supported him and wanted to protect him, right? And so I think with that, there could potentially be some manipulation on his behalf of reaching out to Castillo and saying, hey, I want a platform to tell my story and I want my voice heard. And it could be, potentially, it's debatable. It could be to protect his reputation, to leave a legacy for his children, for a protection of power, or for some sort of legitimacy or from freedom.
He just wants his story told.
Yeah, he just wants his story told, and I think that that's incredibly beautiful that she saw that and wanted to honor that. And I think that it's a shame that she has been denied that platform by the powers that be. And so, to me, that was the focus of this for me. But the love story, the way the whole
Speaking of the love story, we're going to have to get into hurry up offense.
That's good.
I came away from, I've been a lifelong Sean Penn fan, and this documentary doesn't necessarily change the way I look at his artistic contribution to film and all that. But I got to tell you, I came away rather disappointed in his antics. And I'm not sure it's hard to believe that someone as smart as Sean Penn couldn't fully realize what they were getting into and the danger, or at least the carelessness in which he treated this woman who he was romantically involved with, who he was at that time, whether they were dating publicly or whatever, it doesn't matter. They were exchanging romance. And so I think in that type of situation, you put a little of your heart and yourself into someone else's hands. That's just the nature of love. And I feel like he really betrayed her, and that was
absolutely.
a big theme.
Yeah.
That was a big theme in this documentary. And again, it's her story, it's her documentary. I get that, but I'm smart enough to, weed through some things. And I've watched his interviews that he did back then with Charlie Rose of all people. Like, oh, there's a real tough interview, Sean. I came away really disappointed. I came away, as I said, believing very strongly in her entire story. Yes, Sean Penn represents everything she could possibly want. Sure. I see that. An American actor, top of his game with the biggest connections, and that's what she came to the United States for. So I see that, but that in no way clouds the way that I look at this, and that's that she was absolutely a victim in this, an unfortunate one, and drug her family and friends into it as well. But nevertheless, if you haven't seen this, you really need to. And again, for those of you who haven't seen it, Kate Del Castillo puts out a tweet praising El Chapo, putting down the Mexican government. This eventually and in some way leads to her and El Chapo communicating. This then leads to El Chapo entrusting her with the rights to his life story. This then leads to her connecting with Sean Penn and Oliver Stone and someone else. And then it turns into them now going to see El Chapo down in Mexico to do an interview, which Kate Del Castillo then finds out is through Rolling Stone. And it's nuts.
Which eventually leads to his arrest.
Yes, which eventually leads to his arrest.
My goodness.
Which then, of course, puts her in even more danger, because then, there's did she sell them out, or did somebody else sell them out?
She did not.
I mean, we know she didn't.
I am Team Kate 100%.
Wait, does that taint your vision of Sean Penn?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
This documentary?
As a man to man, yeah. Like if that's my sister and that's how you...
I mean, no. Because I
got press passes.
I also have empathy for Sean Penn. I do he's just a dude trying to make his way into the world of journalism.
I'm with you.
And he did what he could. And, and we make mistakes and we're thoughtless and we put people in danger, and that sucks.
I think he wants when you're Sean Penn,
bad boy.
When you're Sean Penn, you have everything. But what do you want? You want another feather in your cap. You go down to Haiti when there's a flood. You go down to Mexico to interview El Chapo. He got press passes for him and the camera crew. They're not journalists. He got them journalist passes. And as the documentary raises the question I wish that he would answer, why didn't you get a press pass for Kate? A journalist pass for Kate? Why would you forget to get her one, or at least ask, do you have one?
Because it wasn't about her.
You thought it so important to get them for you and your
he had
filmmakers.
It, obviously.
But I mean, it was never about her.
Before we wrap up too much, I just want to say that there's so much more to talk about.
So
of
much
course,
more. We could probably do two parts.
One thing that I really loved about how this ended this series ended was with a motivation to speak up and become active in the human rights movement, because it is not over. We are still in the thick of it. We are still fighting for ourselves and for human rights. And I think that was her intention of this film. So we can't leave this without saying that and saying thank you, Kate, for everything that you've done.
Absolutely. Let's
keep fighting the fight.
Keep fighting the fight. Doug, let's take a quick score.
8.
Dougie gives it an 8. Karis.
I'm going to give it a 10.
Mel Yatkins.
I'm gonna give it a 10.
Oh no, I take it back. I'm gonna give it a 9 because there were some subtitle issues.
Oh,
It's a 10 for me. One of the best documentaries I have ever seen.
You talking about Sean Penn, or are you talking about the documentary?
The documentary.
Oh, I'll give
That's
it a 10. I'm sorry.
okay. So our
9,
cumulative
8.
score, the score among the four of us, is 10 and 10 is 20 and 9 is 29 and 8 is 37. So based on our cumulative score, the JuJuBeez cumulative score of 37, our recommendation for the documentary, The Day I Met El Chapo, is we aren't saying see it tonight, but see it very, very soon. Mel.
See you soon.
The Day I Met El Chapo is rated TV MA for mature audiences. Each episode runs about an hour, and you can find it streaming on Netflix under the Netflix Original Series tab.
Thank you so much for being here, Mel. We appreciate you filling in. Couple of quick notes. The director of this documentary, Carlos Armella, I very seldom hear anything about him, but fantastic job on this. I think you've heard me loud and clear. I fully endorse this. Check this documentary out. It's really good. And final thing, I want to say a big happy birthday from the JuJuBeez to Miss Kate Del Castillo. It's her birthday this weekend. So,
Happy birthday. Let's go.
Doug Reiser, Karis Carter,
Thank you.
Mel Yadkins, as always, JuJuBeez.
Thank you.
See ya.
Got it.
Feliz cumpleaños.
So I think we should do a second part.
Feliz
Honestly, we
cumpleaños.
totally could. This one had so much stuff.
There's so much more I want to say.
Cumpleaños.
And Doug needs to talk next time.
Oh,
I mean, Doug
totally
We banned Doug from all talking.
Went right over that one.
Just make your noise. Make your noise.
We banned Doug Talks.
No, do the.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing because we have that sound.
There you go. He's making bird noises. That's all he gets to say tonight.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
Anthony B. Next time.
B.
Good one, guys.